I was reviewing a patient's pre-op scans at 3:07 in the morning when the iPad in my hand lit up with a new trauma admission. Multiple vehicle accident, female, 34 years old, severe abdominal bleeding to the point that her pressure was already dropping. Name: Monica Walker. Emergency contact: Gerald Walker, father. I hadn't spoken to either of them in 5 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not since Monica called our parents and told them I dropped out of medical school to live with a drug dealer. Not since my father blocked my number in under 5 minutes. Not since my mother returned my letters unopened, her handwriting on each return label like a tiny repeated rejection that I could hold in my hands. And now Monica was bleeding out 3 floors below me. And I was the only trauma surgeon on duty with the subspecialty certification to repair a grade 4 liver laceration without killing her. Let me take you back to the winter I learned that being good at something nobody sees is the same as being good at nothing. Before I go any further, and I need you to be honest with yourself here, if your sibling told a lie that got you completely cut off from your family, and then 5 years later their life literally depended on you, what would you do? Because I made a choice that night that 43% of people say makes me a saint, and 57% say makes me complicit in my own erasure. Drop your answer below. I genuinely want to know which side you're on, because it matters to how I tell the rest of this. I grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, in one of those East Side neighborhoods where every house has the same floor plan rotated 180 degrees, and the freight trains shake your coffee at 11:14 p.m. like clockwork. Our house smelled like whatever mom was batch cooking for the week. Sunday was always beef stew, which meant Monday through Wednesday carried that same bay leaf and black pepper signature you could taste in the air. Monica was 3 years older than me, effortlessly charming in that way that makes teachers apologize for bothering everyone. I was the one who did the actual work, quietly, thoroughly, and without requiring an audience to validate it. Every December, my father would set 4 plates on the table for Christmas planning. Monica would talk through her ideas while I had already bought the gifts, wrapped them, labeled them, hidden them in the basement. Dad would praise Monica's initiative. 4 plates. Always 4 plates. As if our family gatherings were a stage and she was the only performer worth watching. I remember being 14 years old, standing in the kitchen after another one of Monica's performances at a family dinner where she'd somehow taken credit for a charity drive I'd organized. I'd finally asked my mother, "Do you ever notice who actually does the work?" She looked at me with this sad, tired expression and said, "Irene, not everything is a competition." That sentence meant something different to me then. By the time I was 32, I understood it perfectly. She was right. It wasn't a competition, because Monica had already won before I'd realized we were playing. I decided, standing there at 14, that I would stop needing their approval. I failed at that for 16 more years. Monica wasn't cruel in the way people think of cruelty. She didn't scream or sabotage or destroy things in obvious ways. She was far more efficient than that, operating with a precision that made you question your own perception. She was terrified of being ordinary. I know that now, looking back with the clarity that only distance provides. Every achievement I earned was a threat to the ecosystem she'd built where she was the sun and everyone else orbited at a respectful distance, never challenging her position at the center. When I got into University of Michigan's pre-med program, Monica bought me a congratulations card. Inside, she'd written, "So proud of you, little sis. Don't burn out. Not everyone is cut out for the pressure." She'd hugged me when she gave it to me, a real hug that felt warm and genuine. I'd felt grateful. That's the thing about Monica that made it all so effective. She could make you feel like she was protecting you while she was setting the narrative that you were fragile, delicate, likely to fail at any moment. At Thanksgiving my sophomore year, I'd mentioned taking a semester leave to help my best friend Sarah through late-stage lymphoma. Monica had listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, nodded with what looked like genuine concern. Then she quietly told my mother she was worried about me. Not worried about Sarah, who was dying. About me. She'd planted the seed so carefully that when everything detonated 18 months later, the ground was already fertile. March 9th, 2:34 in the afternoon. Unseasonably warm for Michigan, that specific kind of pre-spring thaw where the sunlight is bright but the air still bites at your skin. I was in my residency, third year, running on 4 hours of sleep and coffee that tasted like burnt regret. My phone buzzed during a suture training session. My father's number, which I hadn't seen on my screen in months. I'd stepped into the hallway. Answered on the second ring, hoping something was finally changing. "Don't call this number again," he said. Not angry. Worse than that, disgusted, like I was something he'd found stuck to his shoe. "Dad, what?" "Monica told us everything. The drugs, the dropout, the lying about where you are and what you're doing." His voice was flat, factual, already decided before I'd even answered the phone. "I didn't raise a daughter who throws her life away for some addict. You're not my problem anymore." The line went dead. I stood there for 47 seconds holding the phone before my hands started shaking. The fluorescent lights overhead were buzzing in that way that makes your teeth hurt. Someone's pager was going off 3 rooms away, and I could hear a trauma resident laughing about something in the break room, as if the world hadn't just collapsed around my feet. I tried calling back. Blocked. I tried my mother. Blocked. I sent an email with my residency schedule attached, my evaluations, my chief resident recommendation letter that detailed every hour I'd worked and every life I'd helped save. The email bounced back 3 days later. Address blocked, like I was spam. It took me 11 days to find out what Monica had told them. A cousin, Aunt Ruth's daughter, finally responded to my 20th message. "Your sister said you dropped out of med school to move in with Sarah's brother, who's in and out of rehab. She said you've been lying about your residency to save face. Your parents are devastated." Sarah didn't have a brother. I'd taken 1 semester of reduced coursework while Sarah was in hospice, holding her hand while she died at 23 years old. I'd still passed everything, graduated 6 months late, matched into one of the most competitive trauma programs in the Midwest. And Monica had burned it all down with a single phone call. I've told this story to 43 people over the years. Half of them immediately say Monica is the villain, the architect of a cruel and calculated destruction. The other half say I should have fought harder to make my parents listen, that I gave up too easily. Both sides make a case I can't fully dismiss. Tell me which side you land on after you hear everything, because the answer might surprise you. 17 calls to my mother's cell. Blocked after the 4th attempt. 8 letters mailed to the house. 8 returned unopened, my mother's handwriting on every single return label. She didn't even let my father do it. She hand-wrote the rejection each time, as if she wanted me to know she'd personally chosen to send me back. 1 attempt to show up at Christmas. My father answered the door, looked at me for 5 full seconds without speaking, and said, "We asked you not to come here." Then he closed the door. Not slammed it, not shouted, just closed it quietly. Like I was a solicitor selling something he didn't need. 1 person who believed me. Aunt Ruth, my mother's younger sister who'd been at my med school graduation. The only family member in a crowd of hundreds, holding my hand during Sarah's funeral, keeping my secrets and watching me build myself back up piece by piece without an audience. I was in my apartment the night I finally accepted they were never going to ask for my side. I'd been packing up the last of the family photos I'd kept on my bookshelf. There was one of me and Monica at a lake, maybe 15 years ago, her arm around me with both of us smiling like we meant it. I held it over the trash can for a long time. Then I put it in a box in the closet instead. I didn't throw it away because I forgave her. I put it away because I decided that what I built next wouldn't be about them at all. Year 1. Finished residency at the top of my class. Published 2 papers on trauma response protocols. Didn't tell anyone outside my program. Year 2. Accepted fellowship at Detroit Mercy, specialized in traumatic liver and spleen injuries. Highest mortality surgeries in emergency medicine. Didn't send announcements to anyone from my old life. Year 3. Hired as attending trauma surgeon, became the youngest on staff. Didn't update social media or send proud messages to relatives. Year 4. Promoted to lead trauma surgeon. Hospital profiled me in their newsletter. and I didn't send my parents a copy. I didn't even think about it anymore, or I told myself I didn't. Year 5. Chief of Trauma Surgery. I had an office with my name on the door, a team of residents who respected me, and a life I'd built entirely without their approval or acknowledgement. And on the same timeline, running parallel like train tracks that would never meet. Monica had been telling people I was struggling but doing better. She'd posted on Facebook about hoping my sister finds her way, sent my mother articles about adult children estranged from their families, always with the implication that I was the one who'd walked away. My parents had no idea what I'd become. I'd made sure of it, not out of spite, but out of something colder. I didn't need witnesses anymore. But there was still one thing I couldn't fix, no matter how many surgeries I performed or lives I saved. I'd bought a house with a dining room big enough for 6 people. I'd never set more than 1 plate at the table. It wasn't until I was reviewing Monica's imaging that I understood what Aunt Ruth had actually been doing for the past 5 years, not staying neutral, but documenting everything. She'd forwarded me an email thread 2 hours after Monica was admitted. I was in the surgical lounge, reviewing the case details and planning my approach. My phone buzzed with Aunt Ruth's name. The subject line, "You'll need this." Inside were screenshots. My emails to my parents that had bounced back. The leave of absence paperwork from the semester I'd helped Sarah, my residency acceptance letter, my fellowship publication list that proved everything, and one text exchange between Aunt Ruth and Monica from 3 years ago. Monica had written, "Did Irene ever finish school?" Aunt Ruth had responded, "You know she did." Monica, "Don't tell Mom and Dad about her residency. It'll just confuse them." Aunt Ruth, "Confuse them how?" Monica, "They finally moved on. Why reopen it?" I sat with that for 4 minutes before I understood what it meant for everything I was about to do. Monica hadn't made a mistake 5 years ago. She'd been maintaining the lie, actively, deliberately, for 5 full years. I made an error at 4:23 in the morning. I should have recused myself from Monica's surgery. Conflict of interest, personal history, any other surgeon would have stepped back. Called in the backup attending and let someone else handle it while I maintained professional distance. But I didn't. I told myself it was because she'd die if I waited for another surgeon. Grade 4 liver laceration with active hemorrhage doesn't wait for feelings or family drama. That was partially true. The other part, the part I didn't admit until later, was that I needed to prove something to myself, to the universe, to the part of me that was still holding that photo over the trash can, unable to let go. I needed to know if I was better than what they'd believed about me. So I scrubbed in. That decision almost cost me my career. Not because I failed, but because I succeeded. And what came after made people wonder if I'd done it for the right reasons. At 6:47 in the morning, my parents arrived at the hospital. I didn't know yet. I was still in the OR, 3 hours into the surgery with my hands inside Monica's abdomen. Her liver had torn in 4 places from the impact, and I'd repaired 3 of them. I was working on the 4th, hands steady, mind empty of everything except the field in front of me. At 7:03 in the morning, I closed. No complications, clean repair, she'd live. I stepped out of the OR at 7:19, stripped my gloves, and walked toward the surgical waiting area to update the family like I'd done hundreds of times before. I need to tell you something first about what I looked like in that moment. Because without it, what happens next doesn't make complete sense. I was in full surgical scrubs, blue, hair still tucked into a surgical cap, booties still covering my shoes. But the hospital had recently updated our badges, mandatory new policy for all attending physicians. Big laminated cards with photo ID on one side, and on the other in bold print, Dr. Irene Walker, Chief of Trauma Surgery. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I'd forgotten I was wearing it. And then through no plan of mine, it happened. The waiting room was small. 15 orange chairs arranged in 3 rows that had seen too many families receive too much bad news. My parents were sitting in the back row with my father's hands folded in his lap, my mother crying quietly with a tissue pressed to her nose. There were 4 other families waiting. 2 residents I'd trained personally. A nurse I'd worked with for 3 years who knew exactly who I was. I walked in and said, "Family of Monica Walker?" My father stood up first. He looked at me. Not with recognition, just procedural eye contact, waiting for information about his daughter. "I'm Dr. Walker," I said, keeping my voice steady and professional. "I was Monica's surgeon." My mother's head came up. That's when my father saw the badge. I watched his face go through it in real time, confusion at first, then his eyes moving to the photo, then to the name printed below it, then to the title. Then the math that didn't make sense, because the daughter he'd disowned was supposed to be a dropout, a failure, a cautionary tale. Not the surgeon who'd just saved his other daughter's life. "Irene." My mother's voice came out small and broken. The room got very quiet. One of the other families looked up from their phones. The residents stopped talking mid-sentence. "Monica's stable," I said, keeping my tone clinical and calm like I'd been trained. "Grade 4 liver laceration with active hemorrhage. I've repaired the damage and controlled the bleeding. She'll need monitoring for the next 72 hours, but barring complications, she'll recover fully." My father was still staring at the badge like it was written in a language he couldn't read. "You." He stopped, swallowed, started again. "You're a doctor?" "I'm a surgeon," I said, letting each word land with precision. "Chief of trauma. I've been on staff here for 4 years. My mother stood up slowly. "But Monica said." "I know what Monica said." A nurse walked by with a tablet. She slowed down, glanced at me, then at my parents. She'd worked the night I'd been named chief. She knew exactly what was happening in this moment. My father's voice was harder now. Defensive in that way people get when they realize they might be wrong. "You dropped out. You were living with." "I took 1 semester of reduced coursework to care for a dying friend," I said, not raising my voice but not softening it either. "Then I graduated, matched into residency, completed a fellowship in traumatic injury, was hired, and was promoted twice." I pulled out my phone, opened the forwarded email from Aunt Ruth, and turned the screen toward them. "These are the emails I sent you with proof of everything. You blocked me before you read them." My mother reached for the phone like it was a lifeline. I didn't let her take it, just held it steady so she could read. Her face crumpled. One of the residents, Emily, sharp as hell in first year, was watching from near the coffee station. I saw her posture change as she understood what she was witnessing. My father was still stuck on the badge, his brain trying to reconcile 2 versions of reality. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I did." "You didn't ask again," Monica said. Monica lied. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Another family's name was called. They stood up, walked past us, and the room felt smaller with each second that passed. Then my mother said the thing I'd been waiting 5 years to hear and also dreaded. "We should have listened." "Yes," I said, not offering comfort or absolution. "You should have." Silence filled the space between us like something physical. Then my father, slower now and uncertain in a way I'd never heard from him. "Why did you save her?" The whole room was listening now. They were pretending not to, but every ear was tuned to our conversation. I looked at him. This man who'd raised me and erased me with equal efficiency. "Because I'm a surgeon," I said, "and she's my patient." I turned to go. My mother's voice cracked behind me. "Irene, wait. Monica's in recovery, ICU, 3rd floor. Someone will update you in an hour. Please. I have other patients." I walked out. Behind me, I heard my father say something to a nurse. "She's all we have." He meant Monica. He said it 40 feet from where I was standing. Emily, the resident, met my eyes as I passed. She didn't say anything because she didn't have to. Monica woke up at 11:33 in the morning. I wasn't in the room. Another resident was doing post-op checks and monitoring her vitals. But Aunt Ruth was there. She'd arrived an hour earlier, walked past my parents in the waiting room without speaking or acknowledging them, and planted herself in a chair beside Monica's bed. When Monica's eyes opened, groggy and confused, the first thing she saw was Aunt Ruth's phone. Your sister saved your life," Aunt Ruth said, her voice calm and factual. Monica blinked, still heavy with pain medication and trying to orient herself. "Irene, the one you told your parents dropped out of med school." Aunt Ruth's tone didn't waver. "She's the chief of trauma surgery here. She spent 4 hours repairing your liver while you were bleeding out on her table. You'd be dead without her." Monica's eyes moved to the wall. There was a whiteboard with the attending physician's name written in blue marker. Dr. I. Walker. I'm told she started crying. I'm told Aunt Ruth let her, sitting there in silence while Monica processed what she'd done. Then Aunt Ruth opened the screenshots on her phone and read them aloud. Every single one. The emails I'd sent, the paperwork proving my enrollment, the fellowship acceptance. Monica's text. "Don't tell Mom and Dad about her residency. It'll just confuse them." When she finished, Aunt Ruth stood up, put her phone back in her purse, and said, "Your parents are in the waiting room. They know now. All of it." Then she left. 3 things happened in the week after Monica's surgery. My father tried to visit my office. Security stopped him at the surgical wing entrance. Hospital policy, no unauthorized visitors in surgical staff areas. He left a note with the front desk that I didn't read for 6 days. My mother called Aunt Ruth and asked for my number. Aunt Ruth said, "I'm not doing that. If Irene wants to talk to you, she'll reach out." I didn't reach out. Monica was discharged on day 6. I wasn't her discharging physician because I'd handed her case to another attending after the surgery. I didn't see her before she left. But she saw me. I was in the hallway, discussing a case with a resident about post-op infection protocols. Monica was in a wheelchair being pushed toward the exit by my mother. We were 15 feet apart with a stretch of linoleum and 5 years of lies between us. She looked at me. I looked at her. I nodded once. Professional, the way you acknowledge any patient you've treated. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something. Then she closed it. My mother was crying again. I turned back to the resident and continued the conversation as if nothing had happened. Here's what I've never said publicly before, and I need you to understand this. There's a part of me, a small part, but it's there, that wanted to let someone else do that surgery. Not because I wanted Monica to die. I never did. But because saving her meant I'd never get to be just angry. I'd always be the person who rose above it, the saint, the better person who chose mercy. And sometimes I didn't want to be the better person. I wanted to be the person whose pain mattered enough to act on. I've thought about whether that makes me vindictive or just human. I genuinely don't know. What I do know is that Monica did something 3 weeks after she was discharged that I didn't expect. She sent a letter to the hospital board. In it, she described the quality of care she'd received in detailed medical terms. She named me specifically, wrote about the professionalism, the skill, the life-saving precision of my work. She didn't apologize in the letter. It wasn't addressed to me, it was addressed to them. But it was public record. And it was honest. Now, I have a question for you, and I want real answers. Not what you think you should say. Was that letter genuine or calculated? Because if it was genuine, my refusal to respond to her might have been wrong. And if it was calculated, my silence was exactly right. I still don't know which one it was. Type 1 in the comments if you think it was genuine. Type 2 if you think it was calculated. Type 3 if you think it doesn't matter either way. The reason I'm asking, your answers to this question are going to determine whether I share what happened at Thanksgiving 8 months later. Because that's the part that actually shocked me. It's April now. 17 months since the surgery. I'm sitting in my dining room, the one with the table big enough for 6 people. There are 4 plates set out. Not for Christmas planning, but for dinner. Aunt Ruth. Her daughter. Me. And 1 empty chair. I invited my parents through Aunt Ruth, sent the invitation with conditions, written conditions, measurable and non-negotiable. If you come, you listen. You don't explain, you don't defend, you don't interrupt. You sit with what you did, and you let me say what I need to say without cutting me off. After that, we see if there's a next dinner. They didn't come to the first one. Or the second. On the 3rd invitation, my mother sent a response through Aunt Ruth. We'd like to come if you'll still have us. I haven't answered yet. The photo of me and Monica, the one from the lake, is back on the bookshelf now. Not because I forgive her, but because it's part of the story. And I don't edit out the hard parts anymore. Monica and I have exchanged 4 emails in the past year. Short messages, careful, testing the boundaries of what might be possible. She's in therapy now. So am I. We're not sisters again, not yet, maybe not ever in the way we were. But we're not enemies. We're 2 people trying to figure out if the architecture of a relationship can be rebuilt after the foundation was poisoned. I don't know the answer yet. What I do know is this. I set the terms now, I decide the pace, I open the door, and I close it. And nobody gets to tell me I'm wrong for either. That's not revenge. That's architecture. 4 plates on the table. 1 still empty. The freight train shakes my coffee at 11:14 p.m., same as it did when I was a kid. I don't flinch anymore. If this story made you feel something you weren't expecting, you know what to do, not because I'm asking, but because stories like this only reach the people who need them if they travel. There's a part of this story I didn't tell you. Monica's response when she found out Aunt Ruth had been documenting everything for 5 years. I've been back and forth on whether to share it, subscribe, and I'll make the decision based on whether this story reaches the people who need to hear what happens when you stop performing forgiveness and start building boundaries instead. That sounds transactional. I mean it genuinely. Some things should have an audience before they're said. The people in this comment section have become something I didn't expect. You don't agree with each other, you don't always agree with me, but you think carefully before you type. That's rarer than you know. Stay.